So I'm in Melbourne in Australia at the Australian Association of Social Workers, and it's a great pleasure for me to be able to meet with Craik, who is the newly elected President of the Association.
Yes, that's right.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How long have you been in the role?
2 months and 14 days.
Okay.
Fairly new to the role of National President, yes.
Well, you'll have lots of other national associations from around the world and this region, Asia Pacific, that are going to be really keen to work with you and meet with you. So,
yeah.
So welcome, and I'm really excited that we'll be working together on things.
Yeah.
Great.
Fantastic. We're excited too. Yes.
Good. And we've just been talking, and you just were starting to tell me a story about how you were actually caught up in a really traumatic incident, and you needed to switch in your social work skills.
That's exactly right.
Related to a bushfire, which is quite common here in Australia, I think.
That's exactly right. So yeah, it was a couple of years ago now. We had a bushfire that threatened a tiny town. I live in a tiny country town, ended up being stuck in there for 4 or 5 days, unable to get out, no water, no food, that sort of thing. A lot of injured animals and a lot of damage. And yeah, after the shock, I suppose after the first 20 hours. It really dawned on me that we were going to have to help ourselves, and that I was in a good position to be able to do that with the other group of people that were in town. So maybe there were, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 15 people that were stuck in town. I don't know whether it was more traumatic for us or more traumatic for those that were out and couldn't get back in to see what was going on. But pretty soon it became obvious that the emergency services that were involved didn't understand where the needs of our town and some of the ways that the people in our town, did the things that they needed to do. So we had to first of all identify what we needed, which is a great social work skill, identifying what the community wants, and then we had to organise and lobby for those things to happen.
Right.
So yeah, campaigns to radio stations to try and get rid of the roadblocks, campaigns to councils to enable us to have a voice as a community in their planning for post-trauma and reconstruction work. Campaigns even to be able to get simple things in like phone charges, because our phones, when we did have electricity, were running out of charge. Some way to euthanize the animals that we had to euthanize. Some way to feed a lot of the wildlife that was still suffering very much, and there was just nothing left for them to eat. Just those sorts of things, as well as the people, taking care of the people, getting medication in that people needed that we could no longer get through the roadblocks and things like that.
So your role as a social worker, or your natural kind of professional instinct took over, and you were able to kind of get a community working together and lobbying. And in terms of after the immediate event and when people were safe, what was the social work role that you advocated, and what happened after that?
Ensuring that we had a community emergency centre set up in town where people would access, because they wanted to set it up quite a way out. And after an event like that, no one actually wants to leave their place, because there's still a lot of smoke, a lot of smoulder, a lot of embers. This went on for days, probably weeks really. I think 2 weeks afterwards we had the last fire blow up from that fire. No one wanted to leave. So organising to get the emergency centre in town so that there would be food and water and supplies for people in town, because we're also all on tank water, so everyone's water supply was shot. You can't drink ash water. And things like the debriefing, the emergency services wanted us to go 2 hours out of town for that, and I happen to know a lot of the debriefers, brought in the social work contacts and got really good team here in Melbourne to come down and work with us a week after, 2 weeks after, or 3 weeks after, 6 months after, to ensure that people were taking time out of recovery to be looking after themselves and to be aware of some of the mental health issues that might be coming up, so that they could identify that, that sort of thing. Because, people had been through a fairly horrific time, some people more than others, in those few hours when that fire came through. And I suppose the other thing too, around the school kids, all the children at the local school were traumatised, they'd all been affected, and organising for fire teams to stay at the school, to rebuild the chicken coop, to rebuild, to get rid of the dangerous trees, they built picnic tables and chairs and things like that for the children as well, and the children were very much part of that recovery, and it made a huge difference to what was going on at the school as well.
So the children were also involved with rebuilding themselves, hands-on, practical.
Absolutely.
Because isn't that so often so important in terms of reducing the post-traumatic stress systems, and people are actually rebuilding their own lives.
Yeah, and they did. And we also had a Paint the Town Red Day to thank all the fireys. I think we had like 250 fire engines in our town for several weeks. And so we did all the blew up balloons, streamers, posters, everything, and the kids had a ball. It was just a huge red party that went everywhere. And again, the ideas for recovery that had worked in other communities that were they tried to put on us just wouldn't have worked. Whereas when we asked to be able to use the money for what we wanted to do for that sort of thing, it worked a treat. Everybody came together really well.
What a neat story. And actually I often tell students, when I get to talk to students, that just learning social work doesn't just help you with your profession, it actually you can use those skills so much in your own life, and that's clearly what happened here.
Yeah. And it's quite funny because a professor of mine once said to me, social workers need to be able to be skilled up so that if they're dropped on Mars, they know what to do. And I remembered walking outside my front door that first morning and thinking, I feel like I'm on Mars. Oh, I know what to do, you know. Okay. So it came back. Yeah,
that's great. Well, again, congratulations on your new job, clearly from that kind of experience and how you can go and work on Mars, and you know, it's the association here is in great hands.
Bring it on. Very excited.
Okay, thanks so much. Nice to meet you. Thank you.